Welcome to the Halliwell Manor. I'm Max.
And I'm Tina.
And we are here to discuss Season 6, Episode 11 of Charmed.
Witchstock.
I think I had more fun with this episode than you did. It is kind of less fun than I remembered it being.
I think I built it up to too much in my head.
Also, I need to stop saying this is the episode where we find out what Chris's whole deal
Maybe
is.
we never do. Maybe we just made assumptions and the show never tells us what his deal is.
Because, I said last episode that this is the episode where they find out that Chris is Piper's son from the future, but no, it's not. I mean, last episode would have been the ideal time to find out about it, but you know what? The next most ideal time would have been the next episode.
We're literally at the point where it doesn't make any sense for it to not be revealed what Chris's deal is, and yet here we are.
Especially because this episode really heavily leans on him, being accepted by the matriarch of the Halliwell family.
Well, yeah, and this episode deals with time travel, and, this would have been a good time to learn it. At least for us, the audience.
Yeah.
It's weird that we, the audience, don't know yet, even though, the sisters could literally be in the dark until the series finale, and I wouldn't be surprised by anything.
Yeah, we could do the whole last season of Once Upon a Time, Henry doesn't know about the curse thing, which was definitely not a terrible idea that made the... we can't get into the last season of Once Upon a Time again.
No, we can't relitigate that. But seriously,
why not let us know?
It's weird.
So, speaking of Chris is helping Piper, who I like her pregnancy hiding
sweater/scarf.
Yeah, no, she's wearing a giant scarf to block out her pregnancy, which, you know what? Creative. I will give them credit for that. I would not have thought giant scarf as the thing to hide one's a pregnancy bump. I mean, I guess she has to be showing because they're already pulling this stuff.
Yeah, maybe.
I can't think of a non-hiding a pregnancy-related reason to wear that.
I don't know. Holly Marie Combs is really phoning it in this episode, as she has been for the last few episodes. So, maybe she just showed up to the set, and they were like, "All right, someone fly in Holly to hair and makeup and costume," and she's like, "No, I'm fine like this. I'm fine." And they're like, "Holly, you look like you just got out of bed." "I'm fine. Don't worry about it. Let's go. Just roll it. Roll it like this."
I mean, I can't imagine how hard it would be to shoot a show while pregnant, like that.
Yeah, no, I know how exhausting it was, especially during the first trimester. All the power to her. But also, she's totally phoning it in.
Yes. There's not an ass more haft than Holly Marie Combs in this episode. So
honestly, it's kind of weird how much HMC doesn't want to work, and yet they have contrived via the plot to send her sisters away.
How do you mean?
Phoebe and Paige aren't in the house anymore. She has to do all of these house scenes on her own, even though she so obviously doesn't want to be there.
I mean, this is, in theory, a Paige episode, so it's not that much. I'm sure they knocked it all out in an hour.
It just seems weird to have set up the plot in such a way that you were going to make it, more difficult on the actress who is least interested in doing it.
So, Chris has brought Piper to a warehouse to demon hunt, and
she's not interested in being there.
She's not interested in being there, but...
And yet she's the only one who is.
Yeah. Chris is like, "What happened to Paige? She's usually the first one to show up to a vanquish," and Piper's like, "She's boning what's-his-face, Phoebe's boning Jason, everyone's too busy boning to care about demons. You know what? I'm a super powerful witch. I will just take care of it myself."
This demon with no name.
So, yeah, which, oh my god.
At least Grams is as annoyed by that when she finds out that it's a demon with no name as I am.
It's a goo monster. You do not have to put a lot of thought into this. You could just write goo monster. It wouldn't be the stupidest thing someone's been named in the Book of Shadows.
Right?
Remember hawker demons? Because they hawk things.
Daryl is standing guard outside of this warehouse to keep everybody out. And literally the only reason they have him doing that is so that we, the audience, remember who Daryl is for terrible reasons later on.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Daryl comes in and he's like, "I can only use my cop authority as a cop to coppishly stop people from entering this building for so long. So, like, wrap this up.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so Chris orbs in with Phoebe, who is coming straight from Hong Kong.
She's there. It's we're I feel like we need to reiterate this again. We are both white. We're both very white. We don't really
Much
have,
like apparently everyone who worked on this show at this time.
yeah, we don't have the
Cultural bona fides.
yeah. But this feels pretty racist to me. Just putting that out in the universe. Phoebe orbs in wearing a Chinese dress.
Yep.
And she's been practicing her origami, which
In Hong Kong?
In Hong Kong.
Apparently she's been taking origami lessons in Hong Kong.
Apparently that's something she's been doing. And she's speaking entirely in, and I am putting the strongest finger quotes possible here, ancient Chinese proverbs.
Oh my god, yes.
Like, oof.
And I feel like I should state, like, we put stress on the word. I don't know that this needs to be said out loud, but just in case it does need to be said out loud, Phoebe is supposedly staying in Hong Kong, but origami is a Japanese art.
Yep.
Like, I don't want to insult our listeners. I'm sure they all know that. Does anyone who wrote on this show know that? Were they like, close enough? Was Phoebe like, close enough? Is this just supposed to be a dig on her character?
I'm assuming that Jason just hired, like, a group of 15 people to, like, surround her and pretend to be doing things with her to keep her away from business stuff so she won't ruin anything for him. Like, remember
You would need to do that with her as your girlfriend, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So, Jason Dean, smarter than Cole. Because Cole just let Phoebe roll in and ruin all of his demon business meetings when she was Queen of Hell.
Remember those 3 blonde sisters?
Yeah.
Like, Cole could have just paid them to hang out with Phoebe, and she would be Queen of Hell right now.
Yeah. You hire a friend group, and you just take her out of the action.
Yeah, like, if he had hired them to be her entourage, and the 3 of them could have gone to, like, the demon shopping mall. Sorry for the redundancy there. And, like, done some demon shopping. Come back and, like, yeah.
So, Daryl is having trouble keeping the people out of this warehouse because they're not getting paid for the time that the sisters are, vanquishing the demons or whatever.
Although I gotta say, these are clearly union men, which means that if they showed up and are ready to work, they're being paid.
Yeah.
So, but, whatever.
I guess they're just very pro-capitalism. They want to go in and work. The men want to work. The boys want to work. So Chris is forewarning them in a way that doesn't really help. He's like, look, the monster is attracted to magic, so Phoebe, do something magical so the monster will come and attack you, and since your powers suck, if it eats you, then it won't be strong enough to hurt us.
So, the goo monster appears. Phoebe is levitating. We haven't seen her levitate in a really long time, I think.
Honestly, it looks pretty good here. She rises up into the air, and there's this kind of cool shot of her floating there before the CGI goo monster envelops her, and then Piper blows it up.
Yep, and then she opens the door all covered in goo and is like, alright, y'all are good to get to work now. I want to point out that Chris is wearing a shirt that has a, like, embroidered 2 on it. It's like an Abercrombie shirt with a 2 on it. And I don't know if I'm going to remember to keep track of this, but I want to start paying attention to what Chris is wearing if it indicates that he is the second son, the way this does. Yeah, right? This could just be a total coincidence, but I'm going to start trying to pay attention to Chris's wardrobe.
Yeah. Daryl's in the credits again. I feel like he's not consistently in the credits. It also seems weird that they have that much ability to change who's in the credits, though.
I mean, we skip the credits every time, so I would be uncomfortable saying who is in them.
Yes. Fair. So, back at the manor, everyone's getting cleaned up in the kitchen for some reason.
Yeah, well, so Phoebe's wearing a robe, so she obviously went upstairs and, like, showered the goo off, and Piper is cleaning off in the sink, and Phoebe's just standing there in her robe. This is a weirdly set up scene.
Yeah.
Like, they wanted it to be in the kitchen, but it's not obvious why it should be in the kitchen. It's true.
So Paige orbs in and she apologizes for being late. She's not comfortable using magic around Richard because he's having a little Willow in season 6 of Buffy. Magic is an addiction.
There's no groundwork for that. I call bullshit. Also, she should be able to orb away to see her family, especially if they're about to vanquish a demon. The whole thing is nonsense.
Yeah, like, it's not as irritating as, you know, when it was Willow in season 6 of Buffy, because Richard is not a main character. But the whole magic is an addiction thing it's kind of coming out of the blue, too. Like, the sisters were worried about him using magic, but, like, this isn't a Cole situation where his powers are turning him evil.
Yeah, his family was evil in the way, like, families are evil. He was embroiled in an evil family feud. It had nothing to do with his powers.
Yeah, and, like, he was using his powers to help you guys. I mean, I honestly think you were just uncomfortable with him being a character who isn't a family member who has power. I think that's kind of...
the Halliwells are just uncomfortable when it is not about them.
Yes. But now Paige is in a Samantha Stevens situation where she is romantically entangled with a man who does not want her to use magic for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone's off to do their different duties around the house. Piper is starting a load of laundry when a little piece of the goo crawls out of the laundry machine.
Yeah, it was inside of the clothes when she tossed them into the washer.
See, demon with no name, the goo. There,
Ooh,
we
there
did
you
it for
go.
you. Yeah. So Phoebe goes up to her room to get changed, only to discover that Piper had immediately converted her room into a gym.
Yep, it's a home gym now.
And Paige is like, whatever, you can borrow one of my outfits. Only to discover that it is now Wyatt's room. Her old room is now Wyatt's room.
Yeah, they turned it into a nursery.
Okay, like... I feel like Piper might have had alternative motivations for wanting her sisters out of the house here.
Her child was living in a closet.
I mean, fair. Yeah. Our kid had her own room right from the get-go.
It's true. It's true. I mean, we didn't have any siblings living with us, though.
That is true. Yes.
I will say this isn't Piper's house, though.
Well, you mean like it belongs to all... Well,
yeah.
I mean, actually, it probably just belongs to her and Phoebe. No,
yes.
No, wait. Did she change it so it was also in Paige's name in that one episode, or?
Oh, she might have. I don't remember. But, oh yeah, you know what? I actually think she did.
Although I'm sure legally it's probably just Piper's.
You think? No.
Oh, I totally think so. I bet back in the Prue days, the two of them arranged to have Phoebe taken off the deed and just never told her.
Well, Phoebe would have had to sign her rights away.
I'm sure they could have got her to do that without, her noticing.
Oof.
Although, God knows, Grams totally could have just left it to Prue and Piper, too. She was on the outs with Phoebe when she died.
No, but she would have left it to Phoebe because she wanted them to come together.
Oh, yeah, power of three.
Right, power of three.
And as we know in this episode, Grams would do anything to keep her grandchildren alive. Sorry, Patty.
Alright, so Phoebe and Paige have to go up to the attic to find some of their clothes because that's where Piper has put all their stuff. And while they're going through stuff, they find some of Graham's old clothes from the 70s.
This feels like a really...
Or from the 60s, I guess. From the 60s.
Yes, from the 60s. This feels like a really long walk to get to, we find a pair of Graham's old go-go boots.
And yet that's what they do. They find a pair of Graham's old go-go boots.
Also, did Piper just throw out all of Phoebe's stuff? Because they didn't look for it for very long before just being like, oh, we can just put on Grams' clothes.
Well, they're distracted by the boots, which I have to say are supposed to be go-go boots from the 60s, but they look very much like they were bought at a mall in the 90s. Those do not look like what boots looked like in the 60s to me.
Yeah, Paige goes off on this whole anti-the 60s tear. She talks about how it was, like, the decade with the worst fashion.
What the fuck are you talking about, Paige?
Yeah, like, the 60s has had a bunch of very iconic fashions. Mod was a thing there.
Uh-huh.
Like...
Also, okay, just briefly, I want to talk about what Paige is wearing in this episode.
Because honestly, this feels like the whole black turtleneck.
She's wearing a black turtleneck and a knee-length patterned wool skirt.
Which honestly feels like a 60s look to begin with.
And when she shows up, honestly, I feel like it's more 50s than 60s. But that's okay, you know why? Because people dress from whenever when they exist in reality.
Yes.
That's why the kids on TikTok keep making fun of how millennials are dressed, because we are just dressing now the way we dressed when we were 20. We didn't ever change it up.
Yes. But yes, Paige puts on the go-go boots and is immediately blurped back to the 60s. Phoebe and Piper non-react to this, like Phoebe's like, huh, where'd Paige go? As she disappears in a poof of smoke. Like, I feel like kind of nobody's on give a shit mode this week.
It's true. So, she shows up in her room where...
In the 60s. We cotton on to this pretty quick. She finds young Grams cleansing her aura in Paige's room.
And Paige is like, oh my god, Penny! I'm your grandest fan!
Okay.
This is one of the things that made this episode almost unwatchable to me.
Yeah.
The fact that it was so important to not just tell her, I'm your granddaughter who time traveled from the future, with the spell that you put on the boots.
Okay. So, Paige sees a calendar so that we can know that it is January 1967.
Even though later when they call present-day Grams over to figure out what's going on, she's going to refer to it as the Summer of Love.
Which...
It's January.
It's January, and also, I think, 2 years early, right? It wasn't the Summer of Love 1969?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so... Also, Grams is dressed like a cartoon hippie. She's dressed like the kind of... If you went to Spirit Halloween and found a flower child costume.
Yes. No, I'm sorry, the Summer of Love was 1967.
Oh, okay. You win this one, Charmed. But also summer is not January, so, you know. Come on. Although, it doesn't seem like it's January in the rest of the episode either. Maybe they just forgot what months are.
I think you're right.
Because they're, like, out in the park, and it's sunny, and everyone's dressed like hippies.
I mean, it is San Francisco?
Which is famously cold.
Yeah, but it's cold in the summer, too.
Yeah, point.
I don't know.
So, yeah. Paige encounters past Grams, who is a hippy-dippy hippie. She's cleansing her aura, man. And she's, and she thinks that things are really far out. Man. It's very Flower from the U.S. version of Ghosts.
It really is.
She gets better. Yeah. She gets better.
You know what? I just did a little Googling, and we have to apologize, even though they do refer to this as the Summer of Love.
Yes.
They do say that they are having, like, a Wiccan event to kind of mirror Timothy Leary's Be-In that he's going to do, which did, in fact, happen January 14th, 1967. So that is what day it is.
Okay, so it is January. So not the Summer of Love, but you know.
I believe what happened. That was kind of setting the stage for the Summer of Love.
Yes.
I believe what happened was that they wrote this episode, they wrote in Summer of Love, they wrote in Timothy Leary's Be In, Tune In, Tune Off, Drop Out,
Yeah.
Right, which Paige quotes his thing. And then somebody was like, pulled out an encyclopedia, because it was 2001, and looked up Timothy Leary and was like, okay, that happened in January, and then they flipped the calendar to January, and nobody thought about the fact that they had referred to it as the Summer of Love yet.
Yes. So, Graham's and her best friend, a 90s ass-looking woman.
My God! Yeah.
She looks like she should be bullying Claire Danes in My So-Called Life.
Especially her hair. Her hair really bugs me, because her hair is really 2001.
Yeah.
But, whatever.
She's wearing a floral print, and she's got a turquoise necklace, so she's a hippie.
Hippies.
So they bring Paige downstairs where she's exposed to the greater magical community. It's a collection of witches and a couple of white lighters.
And the white lighters are doing, light shows with their little orbs.
Yeah, it's Hippie Leo. It's Brian Krause in a blonde surfer wig making a CGI heart turn into a CGI infinity symbol and then blowing it up. Which it did not look like the other two white lighters were in on that.
No, I think it was all of their orbs. Their little orb things.
Yeah, but I think he was the one who blew it apart.
Okay,
And then he starts, high-fiving them. It's odd.
This is the other part of the episode that really bugged me. The idea that this really intense magical community existed and that Penny was a part of it and that just there's no remnant of it now. And when I told you that, I know you brought up the episode How to Make a Quilt of Americans out of Americans.
Yeah, where we find out that Grams did have a coven that she was, active with.
It still feels wrong that there were so many witches, being semi-public with their magic, not caring about the masquerade at all. I know they are inside the manor. Everyone here is supposedly a witch.
Well, Grams turns a cop's billy club into a thing of flowers later in the episode, so clearly she's not that heft up about, doing magic in public.
Yeah, nobody's showing up and, teaching her a lesson about being burned at the stake.
Yeah.
This feels, okay, it really bugs me because the older I get, oh my God, I feel like such an old person right now. But the older I get, the more I realize that history is not that long ago, and this is 20 years, in the past for us.
This episode.
Right, because this episode is from 2001, and they're saying that in the 60s, 40 years prior to the episode being shot, closer to 30, there was an entirely different understanding everywhere of magic. And San Francisco was somehow so special, and I know, San Francisco in the 60s, I get it. But it was so different as to be unrecognizable from the world that exists now. And that just doesn't feel realistic to me. That doesn't feel real. Also,
Granted, my exposure to hippie culture is minimal, but there sure are a lot of American flags hanging around this hippie-tastic house.
It is still 2001, even though it's 1967. See, I thought you were going to say something different. We're going to talk about the way Leo behaves.
Mm-hmm.
That is my understanding of hippie culture from the exposure I've had to it.
Yes. Paige comes downstairs and she's like, oh, it's like a bad trip. And Gramps is like, excuse me, this might be a hippie house, but nobody's doing drugs or having sex here.
I know.
We just want to keep things high off of vibes.
I know we're the WB, but we're still network television. No drugs here.
Don't worry, none of these hippies are smoking pot.
Oh, but then Leo comes and tries to fuck Paige.
Yeah. They ask Paige if she has an active power, and instead of just being like, no, she's like, yeah, I can orb. And Gramps is like, oh my god, everyone, this witch can orb. Everyone come look at this witch orb.
Okay, so first of all, she can't because it's before she was born, so her powers don't exist.
Yes, as we all know, Chris is the only one who can have magic,
And we learned last week that's because of a special spell he did.
Mm, mm, mm.
I mean, I know it's a little hand wavy, but that's what magic is, right?
Yeah.
It's waving hands.
It is waving hands and saying words and hoping stuff happens.
But also, the reason that she has orbs is because she's half white lighter, which is a huge deal, and I feel like would also be a huge deal here. So maybe definitely don't tell people that, Paige.
Yeah, remember, like, Forbidden Love, it's the whole reason your parents had to give you away.
Also, maybe the reason your orbs don't work is because you tried to summon the 8-track by saying, big fat tape thingy.
Yeah, that's probably not what that would respond to if you're calling out for something.
The thing is, Paige is kind of cool.
Okay.
I feel like she would know what an 8-track was.
Well,
just
her whole speech about how dumb the 60s were doesn't make any sense given how much stuff she knows about the 60s. Apparently,
yeah, Timothy Leary, yeah.
Yeah. Like, I hate the 60s, but I can quote Timothy Leary. Okay.
But just Paige's whole vibe, I feel like she should at least know her history.
So Paige tries and fails to orb the 8-track, and then Leo's like, hey, is your chakra off? I bet I could realign it with my dick.
Yeah, and she's like, no, gross. And then he's like, all right, I will go fuck this extra instead.
Yeah, he just
and
dives.
they're like, Brian, the cameras are still rolling.
Yeah, not to generalize based off of a single comment Holly Marie Combs made on a panel, but I feel like hippie Leo is pretty close to what Brian Krause was actually like in real life.
Yeah.
Because he just dives into a writhing pile of ladies, and Paige is like, gross.
So...
Also, I just want to point out, Patty has been born at this point. I mean, honestly...
Oh my god, the timeline is so fucked.
Yeah, the timeline is so fucked because Grams is still apparently with her first husband, who's Patty's dad.
Mm-hmm.
Patty is alive. They said that she's away. She has to be pretty close to giving birth to Prue, though, right? Like, I'm not sure exactly how old Shannon Doherty was, but at whatever point we were in that 70s episode, she was like, I'm going to say somewhere between 6 and 10. So, like, Patty is theoretically old enough to have a child in the next couple of years or so.
Yeah, okay. So that 70s episode takes place, according to the Charmed Wiki, mid-70s.
Okay.
So let's say 75, right?
Okay, so that would be 8 years from now, which means in 8 years, Grams goes from this obviously in her 20s-ish actress, who apparently has a daughter who's at least in her teens at this point, but meh. She goes from that to Jennifer Rhodes, who had to be in her 40s, at least in the... That's a lot of... I mean, I get it, her husband apparently just died, but... Honestly, this episode is kind of a huge slap in the face to Grams.
Well, I mean...
Because we've always... I mean, I get it. This is the origin story of how Grams became the hardcore asshole we all know and love.
Look, you want to imagine if there were like amazing life history shaking events. You want to kind of imagine, okay, what were my parents like during those events? So you want to imagine them doing the things that you visualize, like, being done at that time. But let's be honest, like, this scene that was happening, the people involved in this scene were, you know, in their late teens and 20s. And Penny is in her 40s right now, and that's fine. Like, go out, be a hippie in your 40s, that's fine, but that's not what Penny should be doing in the timeline. They can't be acting like she's 20 when we know that Prue was born in 1970.
Yeah. Patty has to be getting ready to get pregnant with Prue.
Yeah, Yeah, it's 1967. Prue is born in 1970. She will be pregnant in the next 2 years.
Yeah. So, you have an, if not adult you have an adult daughter. Like, because, not to do more math, but, like, she had to have been an adult by this point. Like,
Patty was born, according to the Charmed Wiki, again,
mm-hmm.
in April 5th of 1950. So she is 16 at the time of this episode. Honestly...
Wow, so she got pregnant at literally 18 by Victor. Side-eyeing Victor.
Yeah. But honestly, it would make more sense for Patty to be involved in this.
Yeah, this would make more sense for a Patty plot.
But then we wouldn't get to do the, like, how did Grams become so jaded?
Yeah, also, I feel like Grams should at least be a couple of husbands in at this point. Like, we know she got married at least... I feel like the minimum we can do is 3. I always assumed it was more in the 5 or 6 area.
I mean, she's gonna churn through them pretty fast after Alan dies.
Yeah. Because we don't have any evidence that she got married after the girls were born. Like, the girls reference her being married a lot, but are we aware of those men being, like, in the house when they were around?
Oh, you know what? I bet she didn't... I was thinking that she had to churn through her husbands before Patty dies, but no, I bet she didn't remarry until after Patty died. So actually, this is fine. To me, that she's still married to Alan.
Okay. I personally think she should have been at least a couple husbands deep by the time the girls were born. It's such a thing they talk about with her that it feels like it should have been at very least in their early childhood.
Yeah.
You could tell how old Grams was by counting the rings on her finger, as they said, which is a great turn of phrase.
Great, yeah. All right, so now that we've talked about the time being basically just all fucked up, what is time?
Well, time is frozen
because
because Patty's best friend Robin, the blonde girl with the 90s hair.
The blonde girl who's clearly from the future! I mean, that's not the plot, but...
Yes. Her evil boyfriend freezes time. He's like, yeah, look at all these delicious witches.
He's a warlock.
Soon we'll kill them all, and then we'll have all the powers. And then it'll be a real summer of love. Love of having powers. Powers that belong to witches. Witches we killed for their powers.
No, this time freeze happened seconds after Penny told Paige that the reason they're having all of this gathering here at the house, at the Manor, is because the Manor is built on top of a powerful spiritual nexus, a thing that we know.
Woo! The Nexus.
What's interesting is by the time the girls are small children... Penny's gonna know that there is some evil around that nexus, but right now... The Woogie. But right now, it's just all good. It's all sunshine and lollipops.
This is before the Woogie gets stuck in the nexus, and then the two of them get kind of interlinked, and also I think it kind of becomes the Hollow at some point.
Well, okay, that, again, I'm okay with that vagueness, because the Manor itself, you'll recall, is built on a ley line, so it makes sense for all sorts of weird powers to get trapped in it.
I feel like you should probably come up with a solution. You have the power of 3 now. You don't have to use Grams's banishment spell to just cram the Woogie in this, like, center of power. It feels bad.
They also should... They should also put some sort of spell around their house so the demons can't come in all the time. I mean... You can't tell these girls anything.
Yeah, well, Grams was yelling at them for not putting up wards back when, in the fairy tale episode when the baby subconsciously summoned her because Piper was feeling anxious about motherhood.
And she was right. She was right to yell at them.
So, the Warlock is talking about how, he's going to get all these powers, and he looks at this floating hippie guy who's playing guitar. I guess that's really all the magic they felt like spending money on for, demonstrating that this is a magic gathering. The guy who's playing guitar is hovering slightly. They point out that Paige is dressed strange, which she's really not. She looks more... Well, I guess she looks more authentically from the time period than them, so...
She's from the actual 60s and not this weird Party City recreation of the 60s that we're all in.
Yeah, like...
Again...
God, look, the headbands and the...
Again, now that I'm old and I can look back on the past, like... there's a trend I see sometimes on TikTok where people will dress like the way Gen Z thinks we dressed in the early 2000s and then the way we actually dressed in the early 2000s. And it's just like, oh yeah, that's, apply that to every time period.
So, Penny's husband, Alan, Grams's first husband, pulls up in his, van.
It looks like the Muppets should be driving it.
My God, it has "Keep on Truckin'" across the front.
Also, peace and love, and it's
as if I would ever stop trucking.
It's a VW Bug painted all bright hippie colors. Can you picture that?
So Alan establishes that he was dropping Patty off at his sister's house, and then he looks at Paige and he's like, "Janice?" And she's like, "Huh?" And he's like, "I'm sorry, you just look exactly like my sister, Janice," which is weird because I feel like they went out of their way to find a redheaded actress to play young Grams so that it would seem more natural, even though Paige dyes her hair.
Oh, that didn't.
Because, I don't think Jennifer Rhodes is a natural redhead. She's brunette, except when she dyes her hair blonde. I don't know what Jennifer Rhodes' natural hair color is, but it's definitely not this, very bright red that they have young Grams in, which I feel like was 100% just to match Paige.
I guess it could have been. But remember, Paige's hair, as you said, is not natural. It's,
Yeah, it's because of a spell that went wrong.
Maybe that's what's going on here.
Yeah. But... yeah.
It's weird that they established that Paige has an identical ancestor in the past. We just don't see them. And we don't get to see identical ancestors. Oh, wait. I almost spoke too soon. We don't get to see identical ancestors for any of the sisters, I'll say.
So Alan's like, "Hey, random girl who looks like my sister. Who are you and what the fuck are you doing at my house?" And Paige is like, "I'm your I'm here for the gathering." Which I don't feel like you'd make that mistake twice.
Right.
And be like, why? Why do you... I just tell them they know magic's real. They're witches. Everyone in the house is a witch. Grams is the one who enchanted her boots. That's why she wasn't surprised that Paige... No, she should have had more questions about that.
So basically, she enchanted her boots to return to her whenever they got lost.
Yeah, she thinks she lost them at a party or a solstice
She
dance
says she was always leaving her clothes places.
Although she's very careful to establish when Paige is like, "That's Alan, your first husband, my a nice guy." And Grams is like, "Oh, first and only. We don't believe in free love in this house," which, why not? Apparently you believed in it enough to bang Leo, as we will find out shortly.
Yeah, but only because she needed comfort after her husband died.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that happened. Okay, so I mentioned this last week, but I just want to bring it up again because it's happening again here.
Yes.
The way time travel works.
Yes.
So Paige has time traveled from the present, quote unquote, of 2001. And while she is in the past, time moves for her at the same rate it moves for everyone else. So if she changes something, they'll feel the effects of it when she changes it. Time is moving simultaneously for both of them.
Kind of. No, I meant about because for some reason Chris and Leo are unaffected by the change to the timeline that happens later. They remember Grams' original personality.
That's because they're in... Yeah, that's because they're part of, like, the group that is time traveling, even though they don't time travel themselves. So they have, like, a protection from it.
Wait, but why? But Grams has a whole new personality. I mean...
You're right, that part doesn't make sense!
Anyway, they summon Grams in the present to find out where the magic go-go boots sent her.
Also, even though Phoebe decided to grab some of the clothes that she'd left behind, she specifically grabbed an outfit that had, like, a Japanese design on it, even though, as I said, she's in Hong Kong. But she just wanted to make sure to maintain the, like...
Grams is also wearing an Asia-inspired outfit, which is interesting. Holly Combs' pregnancy hiding outfit is a giant overcoat, or it's a cape, maybe. Like, it looks like an overcoat, but you see that string thing.
The string thing is part of her top that she's wearing underneath the jacket. It's a really ugly asymmetrical top. I think that Grams is wearing she's wearing, like, a long jacket. She's wearing, the kind of thing that an older woman would wear.
Mm-hmm.
And she's
kind of ditched the witchy dresses she used to wear as a ghost.
Mm-hmm. It does have some, like, Chinese inspirations, but I think that that's more what was in style at the time.
Yeah.
As opposed to Phoebe, who's like, I don't even know what she's trying to pull right now. Oh, but we got ahead of ourselves a little. In the present, Piper and Phoebe are summoning Grams as ghost so that they can interrogate her about what she was doing in the time when the go-go boots would have brought Paige to.
Yes. To find out where in time Paige is so that they can bring her back. They run up to her. Phoebe has this, like, childish, "Hi, Grams! Teehee, it's so great to see you." And we talked a little bit about how Phoebe and Grams weirdly never have plots together, despite the fact that Grams' ghost is around all the time, and Grams died when Phoebe ran away. Grams died after Phoebe ran away from home.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because she was having troubles with Grams. Like, Grams did not die when the two of them were on good terms. I mean, I know we're past that point continuity-wise. Like, the flashback episode to how Grams died had Phoebe still in the house, even though we know she wasn't.
I mean, I think the big reason they don't have plots together is because the show is really focused on making sure that Phoebe maintains a naive view of love, and Grams would just obliterate that.
It's just weird. These are two characters who had a lot of tension, and they just never do anything with that.
I mean, it's because the show has been, for Phoebe at least, and is slowly seeping into everything else, has become about Phoebe's love life and not her, like, life with her family. I think this is the most obvious, victim of that, because, yeah, if the show was still focusing on family the way it was at the beginning of the series, you're right, that would be an obvious place to draw plots from.
Well, and the thing is, Grams is a really interesting nexus for... Yeah. For character dynamic stuff. Like, she's got great chemistry playing off of Paige as, like, still a newcomer to the family, and as someone who she has a complicated relationship with because she's the one, like, Grams is the one who made Patty give Paige up. Mm-hmm. So there's this distance, this very understandable distance between the two of them. And then she has her thing with Piper where, Piper is becoming the matriarch of the family now. So there's this weird competitive edge that the two of them have whenever they have to do stuff together. And then there's Phoebe and Peggy.
Exactly.
She's just excited to see Grams. Okay.
Speaking of people who are just excited to be here, the goo begins to reconstitute and just starts, like, covering up Chris. And Chris is just, like, no-selling it. He's like, no, it's fine. Ignore it.
Yeah, he's no-selling being eaten by the goo, and Grams is no-selling it. He's like, look, I can't teleport because it feeds off magic, and then I'll just make it stronger. And Gramps is like, oh, you're the new Whitelighter. You're so cute. Are we sure about this guy? And Leo's like, just orb out so that it'll go off you and it won't digest you and get your magic that way. And Chris is like, ugh, fine, Dad. I mean, Leo.
I mean, Chris's point is it becomes more powerful every time they use magic around it. And Leo's point is, who cares? We'll just fight a slightly more powerful thing. We're fine. We're the charmed ones and Leo. It's fine.
Yeah. Which, also, like, what are you going to gain by getting digested by it, Chris? Like,
yeah, what's the plan, guy? What's the plan?
I can't use magic because that will make it slightly more powerful versus I guess I'll just let it eat me.
Speaking of not having a plan, after they blast the goo, we go to commercial, and when we come back,
Grams is yelling at the sisters, specifically Piper, for letting the other two move out.
Mm-hmm. She's like, I literally died to bring you three back into the house, and now you're just gonna throw it away? What, so you can get laid?
Yeah, all this over men. This is one of my favorite Grams bits. Men are like utensils. You use them, wash them, and throw them into the drawer until you need them again.
Grams, please, get yourself a man who can wash himself, my God.
So, Chris and Leo are kind of the only ones who are taking the goo thing seriously. Chris is tracking it through the walls, like, he can hear it moving, and there's a, like, crack that appears in the wall.
I do kind of love the sisters being really casual about the goo because it is so obviously not a threat this episode. And Chris and Leo getting themselves all worked up about it. That is kind of a fun dynamic to me.
Yeah. And it's fantastic because Chris is yelling at the sisters because he's like, you're going to need the power of 3 to destroy this. And Grams is like, look, I'm taking over. Chris couldn't even keep all 3 of my girls in the same house together. Clearly, he's too...
Chris couldn't even keep all of my girls in the same year together.
I mean, to be fair to Chris, Grams, you couldn't keep your girls in the same house together either.
But she kept them all in the same year. All right, so she asked them what Paige put on to teleport. It was the red go-go boots, so she knows exactly where Paige is. The night her husband was murdered by her best friend, which is the night she gave up being a hippie.
Yes.
She would still be a hippie now if she hadn't walked in on her best friend murdering her husband. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, she's like, look, I was a hippie, then my best friend turned evil and killed my husband, and I burned her to death with my pointy words. And I know I'm a huge asshole to everyone all the time, but it's just because I don't want you to die.
I have to say, it's a pretty generous read to say that she would be, like, raising the charmed ones, basically dealing with demons constantly, and yet if this one thing hadn't happened, she would have stayed a hippie.
Yeah, also, like, a lot of people who are hippies just stopped being hippies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people... Like you said, it was a movement of the young, and a lot of people moved
Became
on.
stockbrokers.
Yeah, like...
Yeah.
Also, especially, this is Grams.
Yeah.
Like...
And she makes it clear that the reason she was a hippie was, you know, kind of because it was Alan's thing, and she went along with it, you know, with him.
Which, so weird for Grams.
Not Grams at all.
Seriously.
But also, you're going to tell me he died in some other way, and you stayed a hippie? Spoilers for later in this episode.
I mean, he still dies in a demon attack, right? Like...
Yeah.
How is this fundamentally different?
It's not.
So Grams is like, look, we have to... I'm going to send you back in time. I lost a lot of clothes that summer, but we didn't believe in free love. But I lost a lot of clothes that summer. I'll just load you up, send you back. You get Paige, and you don't change anything in the past. And they're like, Chris came back to the past, and he changes stuff all the time. He's like, yeah, because I'm good at it, which, okay, Chris.
Whatever. Again, do you really think going to the past and saying that you're her granddaughter is just going to change all that much? All you have to do is say that you're her granddaughters and you can't tell her anything. That's all you have to do.
Yeah. We're your granddaughters. We don't have access to our magic. Can you cast a spell to send us forward in time?
It's so easy. It's a skill issue, honestly.
You know what they should have done? They should have enchanted some of their clothes to bring them back to, where they were lost. And then gone back in time with those clothes and then just put the clothes on.
Yeah, I think that would have worked. Yeah, that seems like that would work.
Yeah. Also, time travel, everyone can do it. It's
right?
not hard.
So,
Graham's apparently was doing it by accident.
Honestly, when they were doing the circle to cast, to summon Graham's ghost, for a second I forgot what happened in this episode, and I was like, oh, they're going to cast to call a lost witch, because that seems like what they should be able to do.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I feel like they could have just called Paige forward in time, right?
It seems like they should be able to just call a lost witch. Anyway, they're all at a happening in the park, and Paige is getting really into it, and this part doesn't bug me. I can see Paige getting way into this.
Oh, yeah. Remember when she was kind of a hippie in the first, few episodes with her?
Mm-hmm.
So, Piper and Phoebe in, again, dollar store hippie outfits blorp into the past, and Graham's in the past.
Seriously, Phoebe's outfit is like a variation on the literal hippie costume that we see Erin Soon wear in that episode of Farscape where she needs to get a Halloween costume.
Yeah. So, Grams tells them not to use magic in public. Put that in your back pocket for 2 minutes from now. Phoebe sees her grandpa and she's like, oh, I love you, because love is a hippie thing. And I think we're supposed to be like, oh, she's happy to see her grandfather she never met, which, I mean, I guess is an emotion someone would have, but, I don't know. Alyssa Milano is also phoning it in pretty heavily this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody thought this was good.
So the cops show up to bust up a bunch of people in the park. It's not even a protest. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the Kendall Jenner Pepsi ad.
It really does. Especially because, as Alan points out, he's like, this is a public space and we're literally just sitting on the grass. Why are you arresting us?
He's like, you're loitering on a taxpayer-paid-for park. What?
What do you think parks are for?
What?
You can't loiter in a park. It's the one place you can't loiter. A public park. But Graham's, as the police officer goes to Billy Club Alan to death, Graham's casts a spell that turns the Billy Club into flowers. This is a very clear riff off of that one photo of a hippie dude putting flowers in a cop's gun.
It's a woman.
It is not a woman.
Is this just Mandela effect?
Yeah, it's not a woman.
You're right, total Mandela effect.
Well, that's the thing. I was going to mention it because whenever this is homaged in pop culture, they almost always have a woman being the one putting the flower in the gun. But no, it was a male hippie.
Yeah. And apparently that photo was actually taken in 1967.
Yeah. So you knew you were going to get a reference to it. Come on.
So, you know what? You know what does feel authentically hippie to me, though?
What?
Everyone takes off and lets Piper and Phoebe get arrested.
Piper tries to freeze the cop, which, you know how time travel works, Piper. You know you don't have powers. But it's also, it's just so she'll have her hands out so he can easily cuff her. It kind of reminds me of the thing from the first episode of Clone High, where the cop breaks up the party where no one's actually drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, unfortunately, I only have 2 seats in the back of my car, so I'm going to just arrest the first 2 kids I see, and everyone else gets off scot-free. No one even scatters. The rest of the hippies are just sitting there and watching as Phoebe and Piper are dragged off in cuffs for being the closest 2 people to the police officer. Seriously, why did they get arrested and no one else did?
so that we could have this hate crime that's about to happen.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Okay, so it turns out that Daryl's father,
Daryl's exact look-alike father,
his identical ancestor father,
who's played by Doran Gregory,
was, I guess, a Black Panther?
I think that's what we're supposed to assume, because the man won't stop Luther Morris from referring to himself in the third person.
So he's in the next jail cell next to them.
They put so little effort in here. He's got an afro wig, he's got sunglasses, he's wearing a leather jacket. I think you're right that he's supposed to look like a Black Panther, but like...
Oh, no, he's definitely supposed to look like a Black Panther. Yeah.
That's not a hard outfit to put together, and it's reading more the Fonz to me.
No, I definitely read it Black Panther. I just don't understand how the writer room thought they were allowed to do what they did to this poor man.
So, back at the manor, Robin is acting incredibly suspicious, and Alan, the human man with no powers, is like, "Hey, Paige, I'm gonna go see what my wife's obviously evil friend is up to. I'm gonna go by myself with no protection. That'll probably go well, right?" So, Gramps is pumping, in the present, Gramps is pumping Chris for information about the demon with no name. And he's like, well, it has no name, it's a goo that absorbs magic. And she's like, so do they not do research on demons in the future, or are you just very incompetent?
And Leo's like, hey, as long as we're asking you questions, why are you here again? And Chris is like, you almost got me. Nope, not gonna destroy the timeline, other than the ways I mean to destroy it. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, everybody's ignoring baby Wyatt, who has to orb his own bottle over to himself, which is magic, which attracts the goo, and, they have to grab Wyatt and run out of the room as the goo tries to attack him.
Poor Grams. She's surrounded by the one thing that she hates the most.
Men.
Yeah. So they escape downstairs, and everyone, Leo's going to try to keep Wyatt from doing any more magic. Leo can't orb because the monster will absorb his orb, so he goes, he grabs...
Even though I would think, because he takes him to White Lighter Land all the time, I would think he would be able to orb to White Lighter Land, and if the goo followed him, it would be able to be just like, hey, all these angels, just blast this goo, please.
Yeah, you all have the heavenly lightning power or whatever, and I feel like the elders should be able to destroy something the power of 3 could take care of. Like, not to celestial power scale or whatever here, but I think at this point anyway in the series, the elders are higher on the food chain than the charmed ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, the goo has sealed in the house. The goo has formed a goo field around the house, so Leo can't escape with Wyatt, and, they're all trapped and in danger of being, blobbed to death.
Meanwhile, in the past, the sisters have come up with a plan. Piper casts a spell on the cop to make him irresistibly attracted to Phoebe, so that Phoebe can entice him to let them out, which...
Okay, interesting that they don't have their active powers, but they do have spell casting.
Mm-hmm.
This was a thing last episode. Bianca sucked out Chris's active powers, but he still had the ability to spell cast, because that's how he got them back. I wonder if the power stripping potion also takes away your spell casting abilities.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Because I don't think it does. I think spell casting is like an inherent part of being a witch.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's right. No, because we see them... The very first time we learn about this, the very first time we learn about them not having powers in the past is when Melinda Warren, teaches them how to get down and dirty and, actually do spells and not just rely on their active powers.
Mm.
So, I don't think you can strip away just spending the time to make a good, honest potion.
Yeah, like in that episode, Phoebe was able to use her magic to fly on a broomstick by using the old rituals. So, you know what? Yeah, okay. No objection to Piper casting a seduction spell on the cop.
You know what I do object to?
What?
They get the cop to strip naked, and then they toss the shirt to Luther Morris, Daryl's
No way that
dad.
would fit him. Sorry. They have two very different body types.
And they're like, okay, put this on and then lead us to freedom. Pretend to be a cop and lead us out of here. And he's like, wow, now that I'm putting on a cop's uniform, I'm thinking maybe I should be a cop, even though I was literally a Black Panther seconds ago, but hey, ACAB what? And they're like, yeah, your son would make a good cop too when he's born in 3 years. And he's like, what? Oh my god. And by the way, I'm skipping over a lot of stuff that's just offensive.
Yeah.
Well, this sequence is just...
As he said, the man can't own Luther Morris, and Phoebe's like, but what if you became a cop and therefore were the man yourself?
Just imagine the whitest person you know trying to write a Black Panther, and that's what is happening.
It is.
And
it is some rough stuff.
It's a hate crime. It feels like a hate crime.
I mean, we didn't even talk about the music they played behind Phoebe when she was doing the ancient Chinese proverb thing earlier. Like, this episode needs to... This is why...
episode needs to be reported to HR.
This is why you hire sensitivity readers.
I was going to say this whole episode is a microaggression, but honestly, it might be a macroaggression.
So, speaking of aggressiveness, Leo is aggressively trying to score with Paige back in the past.
Again, feels very authentic that he keeps, like, rubbing on her and being like, hey, baby, let's go to my place and I'll show you my white light. And she's like, no. And he's like, hey, baby, I know that you said no, but let me touch you some more. Like, this feels very authentic to me.
Well, yes. He tells her that he's Leo, like the star sign, and much like a star, he's hot and full of gas, and he wants to do her. It is a rough line.
The whole thing is rough.
So, Paige is like, I should probably check on Alan. He went to investigate Grams's obviously evil friend. And again, human, no powers. So, you can guess how this is going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Alan confronts Robin. He's like, I thought you believed in love and peace and flowers and all that bullshit. And she's like, my warlock friend convinced me to believe in something greater. His dick.
She then, summons a fireball and is about to kill Alan, but Paige interrupts, and Alan is trying to talk her down because he's a pacifist. So he's like, I know that you're throwing fireballs at me, but just think about how important love is. And Paige is like, hey, what if I threw marbles at you like a cartoon character and made you fall as you were casting fireballs so that the fireball rebounded back on you because I don't have an active power? And that's how they defeated Robin.
Yeah, Robin slips on marbles mid throwing a fireball. And the fireball goes a little bit up in the air and then falls back down on her, blowing her up.
And kids, that's how I killed your Aunt Robin. It's ridiculous.
Wow.
Okay, so meanwhile in the present, because of the way time travel works into the Charmed universe, Grams is a hippie again, even though a lot of time would have passed for her to not be a hippie anymore, but...
Your daughter died.
Nope, still a hippie.
So she's like, we need to find the blob and tell it about peace and love and how groovy it is to be a hippie. I feel like groovy was never actually a hippie thing. I feel like groovy was something that was made up later.
I feel like it doesn't matter if you're not the one who pulled the trigger on killing Robin. When you see your husband trying to pacify his way through a woman trying to throw fireballs at him, you don't do that again. Like, even if you stay a pacifist somehow, you still don't try to go talk the goo into goodness.
It's goo.
It's goo.
So the goo is it's starting to break through the glass door which this goo is very inconsistently strong.
Yeah.
But, it's as strong as it needs to be.
But they've also discovered that the goo is sensitive to electricity, so they're putting all the electronic appliances in one place so they can electrocute the goo. That's their plan.
Okay, I mean, so they killed the demon that killed Patty.
Yeah, it is. Anyway, in the past, Alan is okay now because they've killed Robin. They killed Robin before she killed Alan, so now he's alive.
So, now we have this sort of weird moment when we're talking about morality and Charmed, because Phoebe's like, hey, look, Grams, Penny, since your husband didn't die, you didn't become the alpha mega, witch who managed to successfully stop us from being murdered by demons our entire childhood, so you need to toughen up. And she's like, no, I believe in love and goodness. And they're like, well, you need to learn how to vanquish demons. And she's like, no, I don't believe in murder.
Okay, here's the thing. She says, murder is always wrong. And if the sisters had disagreed with her, that would be one thing, but they don't disagree with her. They say, yes, we agree. We also think murder is always wrong. It's just that sometimes we kill people when they're trying to kill us, but that's not murder. We don't murder.
They say murder is always wrong, but you need to learn to vanquish demons.
Yeah, okay. Hannah and Rex weren't demons.
I mean, Jeremy wasn't a demon. A lot of every warlock they ever killed.
Nigel isn't a demon. Are you looking at me because you don't know who Nigel is?
I am.
It's the warlock in this episode that we're watching.
Oh, yeah,
Then I don't think they say his name other than in the credits, or maybe once. I only know it because I had to look it up for our premonitions later.
So Leo and Chris have gathered all of the kitchen appliances into one place to try to jerry-rig something to electrocute the slime.
This just seems so fundamentally Chris and Leo to me. They're like, okay, our best bet is electricity. So let's get all the appliances and plug them all into the same circuit.
Which blows immediately. And
guys! You just took out your best weapon! What a self-own.
And Grams is like, I think we should try talking to the blob. And
Look, I know you just said that in a mocking voice, and you're right to do that. Talking to the blob is a bad plan. But I would point out, the alternative is these bozos plugging everything into one circuit and taking out their own weapon.
Yes.
Maybe Grams' idea doesn't look so bad now next to Chris and Leo.
Well, speaking of
dim lighters.
Speaking of Leo, Leo's like, well, talking about talking, Chris, why don't you tell me what happens to Wyatt in the future? And it's like, wow, what a horrible transition. Also, blob monster attack. Probably not the time. So, since the fuse has been blown, Leo's like, someone's going to have to go into the basement to fix it. Here's a flashlight, Chris. Poor Chris. Also, a bunch of fetishy stuff has happened to Chris in this episode. What with him getting slimed. Is that the truest hint that he is a real Halliwell?
Yes. Okay. Yes. So he opens the door to the basement, and then he freaks out and immediately runs away. We don't see what he sees, but he tells Leo that the goo has taken over the basement, and then Leo opens the door, and we see that basically the basement is flooded with goo. There's no getting into the basement without going into the goo, and that's just not going to happen.
So, back in the past, they're sending everyone home because the warlock is still, going to try to kill everyone at the Saturnalia or whatever it is.
Yep, and now there's no way, there's all the witches that he was going to feed on are gone, so haha.
And Piper's trying to convince Grams to, start vanquishing demons, and she's like, my Grams told me that you can't negotiate with demons, and past Grams is like, wow, she sounds like an awful person. Which, I mean, I get that you think murder is wrong, but also maybe don't judge other people's grandparents' morals. Or actually, I guess you.
Yeah, I was gonna say. But Piper points out, like, what if a demon was gonna attack your daughter? You're gonna say you wouldn't vanquish a demon who was trying to attack your daughter or your daughter's daughters? And Penny's clearly thinking about it, but before she can think about it too long, the warlock blinks in and is like, what happened to all the witches I was gonna eat?
And okay, I'm getting pretty sick of what's his face, Alan. I'm getting pretty sick of Alan, because the warlock blurps in and Alan comes up and he's like, all of the witches are gone, no one will fight you, the manor is yours. Which
okay, fuck you, Alan. It's not yours to give away.
It's not your house. It is Grams's house.
It's Halliwell Manor. Not... I don't even know what your last name is, because it's how little men matter in this family manor.
I kind of assumed that he was the first Halliwell, and Grams just married him because she liked the name. That was my theory. But...
okay, I like that theory, actually. Still, fuck you, Alan.
Yeah, fuck you, Alan. Fortunately, the demon also thinks, fuck you, Alan.
So, yeah, he tosses Alan aside, and then...
Grams tries to cast a spell to open up his heart, which doesn't work.
He freezes her before he yells at her, though, because I guess when they were directing this, they were like, God, he is going on for too long.
Yeah, he freezes Grams. He gives a whole speech about how witches suck. He's about to fireball...
Penny.
He's about to fireball Penny. Alan jumps in the way. Alan is dead. Bye-bye, Alan. Phoebe and Paige drive him off with, like, potions they've created.
Oh, okay. Phoebe throws a potion at him in the most half-hearted way I have ever seen her throw a potion. And so, of course, he blinks away before the potion hits the wall where he was. And they're like, it's okay, he's gone for now, but, we can totally relax. Except for the fact that Alan's dead now. Other than that, we can relax.
Grams is weeping over Alan's corpse, and Piper pulls her sister to the side, and she's like, this is wrong. Grams flew into a rage when she found her husband's body. She wasn't crying like a sniveling little baby. Well, my husband's dead. What a wuss. This woman could never protect us throughout our childhood. You only know, you know how Grams reacted from the story she told you.
You know what, though? I'm gonna quote Project Runway here.
Uh-huh.
Project Runway Season 1. You can cry, but you've got to cut, too. The speed at which you're crying, you have to cut at that speed.
So, back in the...
You can cry if you want, but you have to cry and cut.
So, back in the present, hippie Grams opens the basement door to try to negotiate with the slime, and is immediately engulfed by it. New future hippie Grams is dead. Bye, new future hippie Grams.
So, you pointed out when we were watching this, and of course Grams will say it as well in a little bit. What are the stakes here? Because Grams is dead.
Yeah, she was already dead. I guess she didn't have a heart attack in this timeline because she was a hippie.
Right? Like, are we assuming that in this timeline she actually was alive, only for the timeline to be restored by the end of the episode and have her be dead again?
Yeah. But also, she can become corporeal whenever she feels like it, so...
what is death?
Who cares?
In the past, Grams is preparing a power stripping spell for herself because she feels so bad about how mad she got.
When Alan died...
And the Charmed Ones are like, oh my god, fuck the timeline, we're your granddaughters, stop all of this because you need to keep us from dying so that we can constitute as the Charmed Ones.
Yeah. And Grams is naturally like, no, you're trying to trick me? And they're like, trick you into not dying?
I like Piper's like, you know what, just this morning, from my point of view, you yelled at me about not being a powerful enough matriarch, so now I'm gonna yell at you! Get your shit together, Grams!
So, the warlock blurps in, he's like, I realized I shouldn't give you all this time to make potions to kill me, and he blows up the cauldron they were making the vanquishing potions in, And Phoebe does a flying kick at him, which...
Another thing we haven't seen in a while, I feel like.
Yeah. Also, I feel like those are supposed to be, like, guided by her levitation, and that's the explanation for the wire work, but...
No, she was totally doing kickboxing before she had levitation.
Yeah, but I mean, just the way she flies... The guy blorps out of the way and she flies into a wall.
I was going to say maybe that's why it was so ineffective just now, yeah.
So, back in the present, Leo and Chris are holding the blob off. Leo's holding the door closed.
Okay, they're holding it off by electrocuting it with wires, like when it tries to slip under the doorway. But the whole point was they had to go into the basement because that's where the fuse box is to hit the fuse that was tripped. So where is the electricity coming from? I'm thinking, you know what? I shouldn't care this much. But where is the electricity coming from?
And Leo's like, we don't have time to grieve Grams. We need to keep Wyatt safe. And it's like, why would you grieve Grams?
She was already dead.
She was already dead.
Don't cry for me. I'm already dead.
Yes. Back in the past, the Warlock is about to fireball the Charmed Ones. But Penny's like, hey, I realized that murder is good. Like that line Tina likes from Farscape.
Thank you for teaching me how to kill again.
Yeah. So, she starts using her telekinesis. Finally, we're seeing Grams' war and power. She is beating the shit out of this dude with telekinesis.
And she's still enough of a hippie that she's like, I just realized it's okay to murder for love. And she also shows off her Warrenness in that somebody has to shout at her, grandfather clock, so that she can drop the grandfather clock on him.
He's stunned now, and she's like, what do I do now? And Phoebe says unhelpfully, something very, very violent. And Grams does, I think, one of the worst vanquishing spells.
Oh, hey now. There are a lot of really bad vanquishing spells in this show.
That's true.
It's no Woogie spell. It's no you cannot have this Halliwell.
Yeah, it's snuff this Warlock, his days are done, but make him good for the ecosystem.
Yeah, so instead of turning into, like, smoke, he turns into flowers.
Whoa. And Holly Marie Combs says, like a gun is pointed to her off screen. Now that's what you call flower power. I don't think I've ever seen anyone look this viscerally angry to deliver a line. Like,
I felt like they put that line in there just for the trailer, and
they didn't use it in the
trailer. Of course they didn't. That line read was oof. Anyway, they're all like, "Okay, time for us to go back to the present." And
Paige says this weird thing. She's like, "I don't want to forget you." Why would you forget her? What are you talking about? I know it's just a setup, Grams being like, I don't want to forget you either, but I think I am going to invent an amnesia potion and use it, because I feel like this is knowledge I should not have of the future.
And she's right. But I think what Paige means is, I don't want to forget that you used to be cool. You used to be cool, Grams.
So the Charmed Ones blork back to the present, and they just do a, like, quick power of 3 spell to blow up the blob.
It happens behind the door because we spent enough on CGI today.
Yeah. Grams just walks out of the basement, and they're like, I thought you were dead. And she's like, yeah, I am dead. And they're like, oh, okay.
And she's dressed as Grams again. She's not dressed as a hippie anymore, so...
Yeah.
They set right what once went wrong. And, Paige lets Leo know that she remembers that he tried to fuck her in the past, and clearly he remembered and probably has remembered since the moment he met her, and it's like, can we not tell anyone about that, because that was a long time ago?
Yeah, he has to have just been waiting for that to happen ever since he saw the new sisters. Like,
right?
ooh.
You know what? He needs to be better prepared for this kind of shit.
This is Charmed. You deal with this on a weekly basis. Also, we kind of did skip over the line that implied that Leo and Graham slept together, but that happened in this episode earlier.
Yep.
It's he mentions that he knew Grams back in the day, and for some reason Piper assumes that meant that they slept together, but then he acts like they definitely slept together, so...
So the sisters wrap everything up. Apparently off screen, Graham's told them that she now approves of them living apart, I guess.
Yeah, we got an on-screen thing where she was like, I guess I approve of Chris. He really kept his head in a crisis, which, I mean, I guess you're kind of. But yeah, Chris got the A-OK from Graham's. The sisters got the A-OK to continue not living at home because everyone needs to move on now, I guess.
They don't want magic to take over their complete lives the way it did for their mother and grandmother. They want to have their own lives, even though they're the charmed ones. It's like noblesse oblige, right? You don't get to have your own life. You're the charmed ones.
Yes. Leo comes in after Paige and Phoebe orb off, and he's like, hey, is it weird that we got divorced when I'm always around?
And she's like, is it weird that my sisters are living their own lives as, like, happy single people, but I'm a single mom now and I can't stand it? And it's like, I mean, this isn't magic, Piper. This is just what happens when you are a divorced mom. Like, magic didn't do this to you. And she goes to bed, and Leo says goodnight to Wyatt, who is underneath a peace blanket, because that's the, like, thing from the past that remained, is a quilt with a peace sign on it, because that's how these episodes have to end.
Yeah, he calls, Leo calls Wyatt Moonbeam.
Which hippie Grams had done earlier in the episode.
Alright, so, yeah, that episode wasn't as fun as I remembered it being.
It teetered between frustrating and a full-on hate crime.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my it's my review. That's my short review of the episode.
So next week is season 6, episode 12, Prince Charmed. Paige and Phoebe conjure up Mr. Right. A cult kidnaps Wyatt.
I usually do those.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. Go ahead. You do my job. I guess the men are taking over now. Is that what's happening?
Yes. The moral of this episode is men are A-OK. I mean, Graham seems to have gotten over her man phobia by the end of the episode. Chris taught her that men are an acceptable gender.
All right, let's do our segments.
All right, much like the Charmed ones, we have our own power of 3. The first power in our pack is Premonition. Who in this episode is, was, or will become famous? I've recognized no one.
Well, my premonition is more of a claim to fame premonition.
Okay.
And that is Nigel the Warlock, who is played by Jake Busey, son of Gary Busey.
Oh. Wow. Nepo baby.
Yes.
They did not trust him to do a lot. He has, 5 lines and then he dies.
That is correct.
Wow.
It seems appropriate though for an episode about lineage to have a famous actor's son as the warlock. It seems appropriate to me.
Yeah. And Gary Busey's famous.
Yeah.
You sounded hesitant there when you said famous. I mean, he's also pretty infamous.
Yes, he's so famous, he's infamous.
The second power in our pack is Time Freeze. What specifically dated this episode? Okay, this is going to sound really dumb, but all of the kitchen appliances that they had stacked in the... it was just a lot of white plastic, which was the style at the time.
No, that's so perfect. Yeah. I actually think that the weird, fake 60s nostalgia is of the time, is very much of the time.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually, I think, a line in, I believe, Gravity Falls, when they're doing a flashback in a 60s diner, and he's like, it's a 60s diner, which was very popular in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yes, that honestly, the whole idea of having a 60s episode is my time freeze. But I also have some molecular combustion.
Oh, are we skipping right over telekinesis? Were you not genuinely moved when Grams died?
She's already dead! I really should have been moved when Alan died. And that didn't happen either, though. Maybe because that character had not been established at all.
Yeah, I mean, He showed up, told Paige that she looked like his sister twice, and then...
Tried to give the manor away to a warlock.
Yeah, like, fuck Alan.
Fuck Alan. Yeah, but molecular combustion.
Okay, lay it on us.
Well, I mean, we already talked about it at length. This timeline makes no sense.
Yeah, like...
I mean, I don't really have anything more to say other than what we said, but the timeline makes no sense.
We talked about it ad nauseum. It's the sort of thing you can't think about.
Too late. It is like in the Austin Powers sequel when they do the time travel, and they look straight at the camera and go, it's probably best that you not think about it too much either.
Yeah, Mystery Science Theater 3000 mantra. You know.
Yeah.
Just repeat to yourself, it's just a show. I should really just relax.
You know, I'm willing to do that sometimes, but in this instance, it caused me psychic pain.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about being people who've been obsessively cataloging this show for the past several years. I feel like we definitely knew the timeline better than the writers who were just hired to work on this show.
Listen, as I have mentioned before, I'm currently working on a novel that's a gay retelling of Full House.
It's really good.
And I've worked really hard on the timeline of it to make sure that everything lines up. Honestly, my timeline, my timeline works better than the actual Full House timeline, because I actually mapped out, okay, Full House starts in this year. That means they graduated college this year. That means DJ was born this year. That means Joey does his first stand-up set this year. The year that they go home for the disastrous Thanksgiving, in my story, not in Full House, is this year. Like, I spent a lot of time making sure the years all line up. This is bullshit.
Yes.
This is a network television show, and nobody was like, isn't Patty like 40?
Okay, I'm sorry. You just reminded me of something I love. I read an article about New Termed. People were angry about the way I think, third season was going.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a thing one of the new showrunners had said in an interview, which is, I wish people would just shut up, stop paying attention, and just enjoy the show. Which is, a terrible attitude. Because she was complaining that people were noticing that they were just dropping plot points and characters left, right, and center. Like, the sisters get these magic weapons, and then they never use them ever again. Like, I don't think we're ever really going to talk about New Charmed. Because the whole first season is just kind of...
Well, it was so boring. I barely got through it.
Yeah.
Listen, we're going to talk about the Charmings before we talk about New Charmed.
Will that do it? Is that all we got for powers?
I think that's all we got for our powers.
All right.
Our show is partially listener supported. If you want to be one of those supporters, head over to our website, www.welcometotelevision.net, and click on our Patreon link. We'd like to thank our current $5 and above patrons, Beryl, Patricia, Rosa, Ryan, Maricruz, Benjamin, Kate, Jen, Dan, Anthony, and Daniel.
If you'd like to support the show in other ways, you could always rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps other people find the show.
If you want to talk about this episode, or any episode of any television show, you can email us at ilovetelevisionzines@gmail.com, or you can find us on Blue Sky at Welcome to Television.
So until next time, I'm Max.
And I'm Tina.
And this has been Welcome to the Halliwell Manor.